On May 8, 2025, as the sun began to set behind the dome of St. Peter's Basilica, a quiet but powerful anticipation filled the air in Vatican City. Thousands of people stood still, their eyes locked onto the small chimney of the Sistine Chapel. There had been no formal announcement, no fanfare or shouting. But when white smoke rose gently into the evening sky, the world understood what had just happened. A new pope had been chosen. Soon the great bells of St. Peter's rang out over the city of Rome, their sound like a wave that washed across rooftops and into the hearts of millions watching around the world. Moments later, a man stepped onto the central balcony of St. Peter's Basilica. He wore white robes, his hands were steady and his eyes calm. When his name was announced, many were surprised. It was Robert Francis Prevost, an American, a former missionary, and a scholar. He was not well known to the general public, but within the Church, he was deeply respected. And from that evening forward, he would be called Pope Leo XIV. Robert Prevost was born on September 14, 1955, in Chicago, Illinois. He grew up in a city shaped by its immigrant communities and vibrant Catholic roots. His family was working class and devout. They were not wealthy, but they were rich in faith, discipline, and a strong sense of service. Even as a child, young Robert felt something different when he entered a church. He was captivated by the quiet, the light coming through the stained glass, the candles, and the feeling of something sacred beyond explanation. But his path to the priesthood didn't come suddenly. It unfolded slowly through years of prayer, reflection, and personal surrender. He joined the Augustinian order, a religious group committed to community life, teaching, and deep spiritual formation. He then studied theology in Rome, but it was not in the lecture halls of Europe that he found his calling. It was in Peru. Far from his home in Chicago, in dusty towns marked by poverty and struggle, he came face to face with what it truly meant to serve. In Peru, he didn't just preach the gospel, he lived it. He walked with the poor, listened to the broken, and stayed close to people forgotten by most. He learned Spanish fluently, not just to speak, but to truly understand. He taught, he healed, he sat with the grieving, and he helped communities build themselves up through faith. The people he served did not see him as a distant priest, but as one of their own. He lived like them, shared in their struggles, and became part of their families. His reputation grew, not because of publicity, but because of trust. He became known as someone whose life matched his words. In 2014, he was appointed Bishop of Chiclayo, a diocese in northern Peru. As bishop, he remained close to his people. He often traveled by foot to remote parishes. He was not a man of big speeches, but he knew when to speak with courage. He challenged corruption. He defended the rights of the poor. He comforted the sick and the dying. His leadership was not about power, it was about presence. By 2023, Pope Francis had noticed him. Recognizing his deep balance of theology, compassion, and practical wisdom, the Pope called him to Rome. There he was made the prefect of the dicastery for bishops. This position is one of the most influential in the Vatican. It is responsible for selecting bishops all over the world. It was in this role that Prevost quietly helped shape the future of the Church. He didn't choose bishops who were famous or politically skilled. He looked for men who were close to their communities, spiritually grounded and committed to truth. He believed that leadership in the Church must begin with service. He gave few interviews. He avoided media attention. He prayed often and listened deeply. Many cardinals respected him, even though he never sought the spotlight. When the conclave to elect a new pope began after the death of Pope Francis, the public did not expect Prevost to emerge as a frontrunner. His name was not mentioned often by journalists or Vatican watchers, but inside the Sistine Chapel, in the sacred silence where decisions are made through prayer and discernment, his name began to rise. The cardinals saw in him a bridge, a man who could continue the reforms of Pope Francis, while bringing new spiritual depth to the role of pope. He was not rigid, but he was faithful. He was not political, but he was wise. His experience among the poor, far from power, made him deeply aware of what the Church is truly called to be. His American citizenship mattered less than his global heart. He had seen faith tested not in debates but in suffering. When he stepped onto the balcony and announced his papal name, Leo XIV, the world took notice. The name had not been used in centuries. It was a bold choice. The last Pope Leo XIII, was a reformer, a philosopher, and a defender of workers' rights. He was someone who brought the Church into dialogue with the modern world without losing the richness of tradition. By choosing this name, Prevost was sending a message. He wanted to continue that legacy. His first words as Pope were not a declaration of power. He did not promise dramatic changes. Instead, he asked for prayers. Then he bowed. In that simple act, people saw not a ruler, but a shepherd. They saw a man who had spent decades walking with the forgotten, now walking into the role of supreme pastor. Many Catholics around the world were moved by this moment. It was not just that he was the first American pope. It was what he represented, a return to quiet strength, to genuine service, and to spiritual focus. He reminded people that the Church is not built on charisma or media attention, but on deep faith and humble leadership. As Leo XIV, he has continued to walk that path. He speaks simply, but his words carry weight. He has begun visiting parts of the world often ignored by global leaders, places of war, poverty, and persecution. He has sat with refugees, spoken with wounded priests, and visited remote communities where the presence of the Church is the only light in darkness. In his early months as Pope, he has emphasized three things: prayer, justice, and mercy. He has called on Catholics to return to personal prayer, to make time for silence with God. He has urged leaders to fight for justice, not just talk about it, and he has reminded the Church that mercy is not weakness, but strength. He speaks often about listening, especially to the young, the poor, and those who feel abandoned. He has not changed doctrine, but he has called for deeper understanding. He has met with leaders of other faiths, seeking peace and friendship. He has spoken plainly about the need to protect the environment, care for the elderly, and support families. He does not avoid hard truths, but he presents them with compassion. Pope Leo XIV's leadership is shaping a new tone in the Church. It is less dramatic, but more real. He does not seek applause, but encourages reflection. He wants the Church to be a home, not a fortress, a place where truth is spoken in love and where no one is forgotten. People around the world, even those who are not Catholic, are paying attention. They see a man who does not claim to have all the answers, but who walks humbly with God. In an age of division and noise, his calm presence is striking. His message is not new, but it is deeply needed. This is who Pope Leo XIV is. A man shaped by faith, service, and simplicity. A shepherd who does not run from the cries of his flock. A leader who believes that the Church's greatest power lies not in buildings or politics, but in the quiet strength of love. As his papacy continues, many are hopeful. Not because he promises easy answers, but because he lives the questions with grace. In a time of uncertainty, Pope Leo XIV offers something steady, a witness to the gospel lived with humility, wisdom, and courage. And for millions of Catholics and others watching him from afar, that may be the change the Church truly needs.